Welcome back, everyone, to Random Thoughts. As you saw from the opening stinger, we have a new segment for you, and I'm calling it Phobies News Flash. The idea here is that we're going to be talking about recent news in the world of Phobies, whether it's new patches, new announcements, and, as you may see throughout this particular episode, a whole lot of rumor mill segments. So let's jump in. Quick aside, everybody, before we get into the actual content, I was accepted into the Phobies Content Affiliate Program, the content creator program, you might call it. Shout out to the Phobies team, and thank you for that. But the reason I'm telling you, everybody out there, dear viewer, dear listener, is to let everybody know that I do receive some compensation from the Phobies team as a result of being part of that program. Now, I loved Phobies before, and I still love Phobies now, and I expect I will still continue to love Phobies in the future. So look forward to more Phobies content coming from Random's Thoughts. So now, on with the show. There are three main topics to talk about. The first two are more speculation based, although we have something more concrete to go on for one than the other. But the last one is actually fairly concrete. We just don't quite know all the details surrounding it. What am I talking about? Well, here we go. We'll start with the one that we have a little more of a concrete basis to go on, and that is the recent patch that we just got this week, at least at the time of this recording. So this patch went in and it was stated to be prep for a future release. Now, we've seen that before. When did we see that before? Well, it was actually not all that long ago. It was with the 1.3 release where we actually got Poison Ivy and Blinky, two new Phobies added to the game. Hopefully you can see where this is going. And it will bleed into the second topic. So the speculation here, of course, is that we are due for some new Phobies, which is super exciting because we got the two new ones. They seem to be pretty solid, and I'm excited to see what else the team has in store for us. Because I personally don't feel that the meta is stale. I don't feel that I'm getting bored with Phobies at all, but it's also fun to get new toys. The art direction, the atmosphere, and of course the gameplay have all been spectacular with Phobies from the time I started through now, and I expect that to continue. So I have very high hopes for what I'm assuming is going to be a new Phobie release. Now the question really comes down to, when are we going to get it? If you recall way back when we got the Blinky and Poison Ivy update, I keep wanting to say Venus, but Venus is the one that was already in the game. Poison Ivy is the new Phobie, even though they are palette swaps of each other. More on that later. When we got that update, it was teased for a little bit. Remember, we got those silhouette photos of the two Phobies. Then we got more information as we got closer, but there was a preceding patch which staged the update, and then the update itself went live, and they weren't that far apart. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing whether this update comes and is in our hands very soon. And I hope it is, because it's tough waiting for these new releases. It's always exciting to get these new toys, and the anticipation is personally killing me. So let me know down in the comments, do you think this is going to be a new Phobie? Because the next section, if you don't think it's a new Phobie, is probably going to sway you a little bit. What is that next section? Well, we're getting to it right now. We've had a series of social media posts from the official Phobies team mixed in between, the updates and other marketing posts and general Phobies promotion. There have been a few teasers that have shown up that we're going to pop up over there for you so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. There's a consistent theme among them, and I kind of wanted to break it down a little bit. So clearly, we're talking new Phobies, or I think it's a safe bet we're getting a new Phobie, right? As mentioned in the previous segment, as the precedent has been set at this stage that we get these staged updates when we get we'll call it a larger release, a more impactful release that is new Phobies. We saw it with Poison Ivy, and we saw it with Blinky coming in the patch 1.3. Now, this alien extraterrestrial Phobie is kind of the theme. We saw 4 different posts so far where it's referencing things happening in the sky. There's apparently, and I was told this by chat, that there's a bunch of conspiracy theories about Easter Island. There's the references to clearly your stereotypical depiction of extraterrestrial life. And of course, the X-Files-esque references to, do you believe, that sort of thing. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to be getting an alien-based Phobie, which has a lot of potential, and there's an enormous range of things that could happen with it. The speculation really begins here. So what can this Phobie do? Honestly, let's start with the looks, though. What do we think it's going to look like? Truthfully, I kind of expect this to be another palette swap. The reason I say that is if you look at one of these pictures, and we'll put it up there right now, there seems to be a particular reference to Pescetti, or at least that it gives me the idea that maybe Pescetti is there. Now, you can make the argument that this other picture that we're putting up might lend towards a different Phobie model, but we've already seen Pescetti, and we've already seen Akira with this tentacle-based art, tentacle-based physique, that I think we're going to get a palette swap. We've already seen the precedent with the Droney series, the Hevo series, even the common meme on the channel, bees, both Ginsting and Hematic Ginsting are ultimately the same model, just palette swap, meaning that the colors have changed to differentiate one from the other. This is a common thing within games, and I kind of expect that we're going to see the continued emphasis on doing this in order to introduce new phobies. Now, that isn't to say that we won't get A, more than one phobie, or B, that we can't get a new model. We saw Poison Ivy in the first introduction, which is a palette swap of Venus, but we also saw Blinky, which was an entirely new phobie. There's nothing else like it. So maybe we'll get more than one. Let me know down in the comments. What do you think? Are we getting two new phobies? Are we getting one? What's it going to look like? And maybe, what do you think the ability is going to be? For my part, if we have the tentacle-based phobie, and again, maybe there's going to be more than one, I kind of expect another yoinks-based ability or a poison one, maybe a stun or electric, because I could kind of see something jellyfish-like that is going to push damage that way or cause some other effect in that vein. But like I said, let me know down in the comments what you think on what is going to show up from this new release. So kind of like the hidden messages in the teasers that we've gotten for the potentially new phobies, we have a hidden news item for you. So it was mentioned on my stream and then ultimately in my Discord that there's a, maybe not a rumor, because this actually came from an official source. If you head on over to the official Phobies Discord, there is an Ask the Devs channel. And in the Ask the Devs channel, there was this quote. So we're going to break down this quote because this is something that has been asked for a while now. The original suggestion that was made by someone in the community was more seemingly leaning towards 2v2. Now, the response, of course, from Boss, who, again, is official Phobies team member, is that they're looking into it. Honestly, trying to implement something as significant as 2v2, especially after the fact, is very challenging. I've talked about it on stream multiple times, which, by the way, if you want to see some live Phobies content, games, and discussions, check out the live stream, RTChompGG, over on Twitch. But the bottom line is that the architecture on the back end may not support it. So maybe it has to be built out. And that could be enormously challenging. Now, even if we put the potential tech challenges aside, we're now talking about a whole bunch of people-related problems. I think we've all played async games that have dragged on for weeks, maybe even months at this stage. If you or your opponent always constantly wait until the last second in order to issue a command and then extend the life of the game. These games could drag on for a very, very long time. So, how is that going to look when there's two more people added to the game? Not just you and your opponent, but a teammate and an opposing teammate. That's a lot of extra potential to have these games drag on and on and on. Is that a problem? Maybe. It could be a drain on server resources. It could be problematic from other standpoints, just from a backwards compatibility patch management standpoint. There's a number of issues that could happen on the technical side, as well as just from a user usability standpoint. And the balance is also going to be all kinds of screwy, because anybody who's played any RTS that's typically a 1v1 game will tell you that when you get into 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, and higher, the games just get weird, because typically the games are based around the 1v1, and it doesn't necessarily scale into the ways that you'd want. So how many keys you generate a turn, how big the map needs to be, where the spawns are, all of these things suddenly have to get extra development time in order to make sure it's at least a reasonable and fun experience, not even necessarily balanced. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But the big thing is, and this is big for me, is that they are hoping to get Arena in Frenemies in a release after the next release. Now, at the time this was posted, The next release is the one that we were just talking about, where we're assuming we're going to be getting new Phobies. But keep in mind, to be the wet blanket for a moment, it is for a release after the next release. They are not explicitly stating that this is the immediately following release. So it's not we're going to get new Phobies and then, hey, 2 weeks later, we're getting Frenemies in Arena mode. I certainly hope that's true, but let's be realistic. There's a lot of technical details that have to be ironed out, including not just setting it up, but it needs to pass checks through iOS. It needs to pass checks through Google for Android. It needs to pass checks through Steam and other PC requirements in order to deploy just an update in general. And that's before, again, we talk about a usability perspective. We talk about any other technical challenges that are going to come up as a result of trying to make this materialize. Now, wet blanket stuff aside, I'm super excited about this. It's something we've been asking for, we being not just me and the Random Thoughts community, which, by the way, if you want to hang out and talk about some Phobies or other games, hit up the Random Thoughts Discord in the YouTube description of this video. But there's a lot of people who've suggested this independent of all those people in the Phobies Discord alone, on the Phobies forum, hitting up the Phobies social media. There's a lot of people who want to play Arena because there are just different preferences and also different advantages and disadvantages of playing async versus Arena. And you know what? Sometimes people just want to do one or the other, but you just can't do that right now. You can kind of sort of simulate Arena in Frenemies if you get both people online at the same time and try and play very quickly. But there's a lot of potential for this, both for general Frenemies games as well as playing with friends in tournaments, or maybe enemies in tournaments. You can run community events much more easily if you say, hey, play an Arena game as opposed to async. It shrinks the requirement or the potential required amount of time for players because just get online. The game itself constrains your turn, so you don't have someone taking 1,000 years on their turn and then therefore elongating a given match, a given round, a given tournament. Additionally, personally, I find it kind of annoying to go in and out and in and out and in and out for async games. Once you zone into that Arena game, you can just play the whole game, get it done, and then move on to the next. So I think there are a lot of quality of life advantages to offering Arena in Frenemies. Now, personally, I also just enjoy Arena way more than async, and I emphasize that on my stream. But I don't fault anybody who's preferring one mode or the other. It will be great to have the option to do both, especially in Frenemies, where you're not really negatively influencing the queues in this particular manner. We're not creating a third queue like a 2v2 setup, which is one of the other drawbacks, calling back to the initial part of this discussion, that if you were to add 2v2, you're now splitting people away from the other queues potentially, and that can be problematic. Now for async, it's probably less of an issue because people just queue up a ton of games. But for Arena, if you played other games and ever had to sit in queue for 3, 4, 5, 25 minutes, it's problematic. We're nowhere near that in Phobies, even at the highest ranks. I'm sitting in Sum of All Fears and I get games very quickly, and you can see it on the live stream. It is an issue for other games, and you don't want to just make your life more difficult as Phobie. So that's going to do it for this particular news flash. May have went on longer than I thought, but we managed to get in our 2 major news items and a surprise sneak item. But we're going to close out for today. Check in with Random's Thoughts to keep up on Phobies news. Hit up the Random's Thoughts live stream over on Twitch, or check out the other Phobies content and other content here on the Random's Thoughts YouTube. Of course, you could always check out the Random's Thoughts Discord as well if you want to get involved in some Phobies events and talk other games. But that'll do it for this time. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.